All right. So good evening, everybody. My name is Pasquale Dell'Aquila, and I'm going to be giving a presentation on Stellarium and the custom landscapes that you could use to put in there to simulate what the stars in the sky might look like from your property or from any location. So this is a presentation specifically for the Rose City Astronomers, the beginning Astronomical Imaging and Photography meeting for tonight. So I will attempt to present 30 slides in less than 13.5 minutes with a 5-minute break at the end for questions. I ask that you hold your questions to the end and note any slide number because I'm going to fly through these pretty quickly. Okay, so the presentation agenda is a personal introduction of me, what is Stellarium, landscapes and the landscape INI file, equirectangular or spherical images, Street View Download 360, the Stellarium config INI file, and then questions at the end. So the personal introduction, my name again is Pasquale Dell'Aquila. My education and experience are in engineering and project management, and I've been an RCA member since January of this year. I wanted to get into astronomy for decades, but only started using an actual adult telescope last October. Since then, I've accumulated lots of red, black, and orange analyzed aluminum parts and gear, some of which I didn't actually need, but that's another story. Why am I presenting tonight? I want to contribute what skills I have to help enhance RCA club members' planning and viewing experience using Stellarium. In the short time that I've been a member, I've gained much knowledge from the subject matter experts running and those participating in this special interest group. Thanks to you, Jeff, Robert, and Stephen, and all the participants for the contribution. You really are doing a great job. So, what is Stellarium? Stellarium is a free, open-source, locally installed planetarium program released in 2001. It's currently available for other operating systems. As of this presentation, the current version is 26.1. We have the link to Stellarium, and I'm working out the details of trying to get the PDF of this file to all the attendees so that you can activate and play this back and look at the links. But we'll get to that later. So there's also a Stellarium.web. You can see that it's available for Linux and Mac. I actually have both of these installed, 10 Plus and 7, because one of my computers is 7. Another long story. So Stellarium Web is a non-installed Stellarium application that runs online. It operates very similar to the installed version, but it's more like Stellarium Lite. So you could put in your location and you have the ability to move through time and change the images somewhat, but it's nowhere near the capability. So there's a mobile version because we're moving towards this direction. I have this actually myself. So I'm an Android user, and I downloaded the free Stellarium Mobile and used it for just a few hours when I realized this in-app purchase really meant in-app purchases. So for a mere $19.19, 99 cents, I decided to buy the actual purchase an app, and I bought the Plus, which is actually works quite well. So when you start up Stellarium, this is the default screen you would see. It has the default landscape of Guérin. Now, Guérin is a small French village. So why this is working, because within this dialog box, Guérin is the default landscape. Within this dialog box, we have location from the landscape. So that means that within the file that I'm going to show you, this information has been plugged in there. So whatever landscape file you put in will determine where you are on the planet, therefore determining what stars you can see. So each landscape is in a separate folder by the same name in the program filed Stellarium landscape folder. Each folder has a landscape INI specific to the landscape. So for every one of these landscapes that you see in the left, there is an associated INI file within a directory by this name. So why am I telling you all this when there's a button here to add and remove landscapes and you don't need to know where any of this stuff is? Well, because when you click on that, it wants you to put these into a zip archive, and I've tried this. It's cumbersome and it doesn't give you visibility. I don't like warning signs. Don't like any of that. So what I'm about to show you bypasses all of this and is literally the back door into how to update your system. So if I go to my landscapes folder in Windows Explorer, you could see all of these directories, all these folders of all the different landscape names. The one we're going to look at tonight is Lucia TS. So if I double click on that folder, it shows me that I have a PNG file in there and a landscape INI. So those are the only two files that are required for this to work, for the format that I'm using. None of the other things that could be possible with other versions, but we'll get to that. So in the landscape INI, you'll need to run Notepad as administrator, allowing editing and saving of system files in protected folders like Windows or program files. Otherwise, you can edit the landscape file, but you'll likely get this error when you try to save it because you don't have the permissions to that file. So the way around that is you right-click on Notepad, run it as administrator, click File, Open, and go directly to the landscape file. And that'll allow you to bring up the file editor, bring up Notepad to be able to put in this data copied from another INI file and modified. I start with a blank, not a blank file, but an existing INI. So here you could see some of the field names here, the name, my name, what it's called, what type, the image, the angle of rotation, and some other information. I'll get to this later because what's important is that the current version of Stellarium 26.1 has a user guide that's 444 pages. Of that, 20 pages is dedicated to landscape. You can get the guide by going to their link. Now there's lots of other parameters you could put in here. Light pollution, fog display, atmospheric extinction coefficient. I mean really. And I haven't played much with these, but you can make your landscapes as specific as you need them to be and switch between them on the fly depending on where your viewing location is. So the default installed landscapes use different methods of image projection. Opening the respective INI for these landscapes will reveal the methodology that each one of them uses. For instance, the Gorans uses old style. The trees landscape uses a fisheye image. The Gauss-Mug uses spherical, but it has multiple images. So these are all different than the one I'm using. So we're going to be concerned right now with the important factors of this INI file, and that really means the latitude, longitude, altitude, time zone, the type of image, angle, and type of file. So for us, for this type of projection, which is spherical, is another word for equirectangular. So what is an equirectangular image? Well, an equirectangular image is a flattened and stretched spherical image which can be represented as a cube. Okay? So I have an Insta360 X4 camera. It's a 360 camera. Facing it directly west constitutes front in the image that's created. The rotation angle is editable later on if you misalign the rotation. So you're probably familiar with an equirectangular image. Here's a projection of the Earth of an equirectangular that you can get from the Wikimedia Commons. It is a super high resolution photograph, and it's basically the same distribution of that shape from a sphere. So I went to Lucia Farms in Lake Oswego, Oregon on April 4th this year at 2:27 p.m. and took this photograph. This is a JPEG image, which is an equirectangular or spherical image, and you could see down at the bottom here, you can see the camera at the little top of the tripod, and the bottom is all stretched out. So in order for me to make the sky transparent, this has to be a PNG file, because this landscape, Lucia TS, is using a texture map of a PNG file. So I need to make this transparent. So, using a trusty program from circa 2000, Paint Shop Pro version 7, it was shareware at the time, I used the magic wand tool to select and delete all the sky, leaving only the background color to show through. So, I used the preview palette to show how the sky looks like when it's been deleted. I saved this image as a PNG file in the specific landscape folder, in this case, Lucier TS, with the right folder name. So let's look at this file again, this landscape INI file. So we already know we have a spherical file, we know we have a PNG file, that is the transparency that we need, and we know we don't have to change the rotation. So all we have to be concerned with now is the latitude, longitude, altitude, and time zone. Stellarium requires coordinates be in degrees, minutes, and seconds format. The coordinates uses D in the place of the degree symbol. Altitude is in meters. The time zone have to conform with IANA time zone names that you could find on Wikipedia in the time zone database. I often use Google Maps to get the locations of coordinates which are in decimal form. These need to be converted to degrees, minutes, and seconds. I use an fcc.gov online app to convert back and forth between those. So this is what Stellarium looks like when I start it up on my computer. This is my default startup. It's my deck. I have in the compass marks and the cardinal points and some of the features that I like to see, like the time zone and the date time, that kind of, you usually get the set the way you want. So the sky is missing here. This is a Stellarium sky. This is not my sky. So if I go to sky and viewing options, F4, you could see that the land, and then select, I'm sorry, if you go to F4 and then select the Lucier TS that I recently uploaded, you could see that the background is already that image that I had. So the reason why this is working again is because we have location from landscape, and it puts the coordinates and the altitude and where it is. So here's a video of where that camera is, short 30-second video to give you an idea of what the 360 camera was looking at after I put this image into Stellarium. Now, let's say you have a telescope at the top of the Eiffel Tower and you want to simulate the view in Stellarium. Well, search Google Maps by name, address, or coordinates, and then scroll down to Photos and Videos. Click on the Street View and 360 and find an image that you like. Copy the entire URL. Once you have that, you can now create an equirectangular image from that. Now, I actually learned this from this group. Somebody within the AP group mentioned that you could use this program to bring down Google Street images. I'm like, really? So I downloaded this program for Windows. I installed it, and when you run the executable, it brings up a dialog box. So you have to update the path to put in where you want the images saved and the URL that you copied. Now the free version of this limits your image size to 3328 by 1664. For what I'm doing, I think that's okay. So you click download panorama, and the panorama appears in a matter of moments. So this is the image that I got from that app. This shows the exact equirectangular view as seen from the top of the Eiffel Tower. Google Maps gives me the coordinates in decimal, which I need to convert, and then the altitude of 276 meters. So I do what I did before. I edit the JPEG, delete the sky, and save it as a PNG. Create a landscape INI with all these values: Eiffel, Earth, France, latitude, longitude, everything we talked about. Save both files in a newly created Eiffel folder. Click on F4, bring up Eiffel, and you're in France. So The reason I did all this is pretty simple. I have a limited place to do my observation at my house. What you're looking at there, that little triangle, that little tri-shape, is actually the base of the tripod for the invisible selfie stick that the camera is on. And that's the optimal location for where my telescope can be for me to be able to see the maximum amount of sky and still be able to calibrate it correctly with the North Star, Polaris. So I created a pretty in-depth, pretty long video of this, but I reduced it down to a matter of 20 seconds to just give you an idea of what visibility you have. So let me play that. You can see I'm keeping an eye out. So I'm moving by hour, and now I'm moving by day for 1 year. You see Polaris is in location. It's staying pretty much in one place, but you do notice that it doesn't stay completely still. It does move around. It's probably because it's not exactly north, or the other way around. Probably Stephen could probably answer that. So this is the final slide. So there's an 852 line config INI file located in the app data roaming Stellarium directory, which allows for an incredible amount of extensive application customization. Now remember, back up your original file before you do anything to this file. There are 30 pages in the Stellarium Guide, Appendix D, describing all the parameters and the value options. I've made several changes to mine, including changing the GUI to make it a little bit brighter, to change the window transparency, and change a few elements. Now, this presentation was narrowly focused in subject matter. There are many other tools providing ocular views, sensor telescope simulations, and Java scripting to automate animations, to just name a few. If interested, I can give another presentation at some later date on some of these features once I get them completely figured out. So, thank you very much for your time. I hope you got something out of this presentation. And you could reach me at pda@vmaxman.com. So, we do have time for some questions, I like to hope. And this slide has been left intentionally blank.